Scout Finch and her older brother Jem were playing in their front yard when they first saw him, a small boy with blonde hair. He was walking down the street with a backpack slung over his shoulder. He introduced himself as Charles Baker Harris, but asked them to call him Dill. Dill had come to stay with his aunt for the summer, and the children quickly became friends. They spent their days playing games and exploring the town of Macomb, Alabama, where they lived. But their favorite topic of conversation was the mysterious Boo Radley. Boo Radley lived in the house next door to the Finches and was never seen outside. Rumors swirled around him that he was a monster, that he had been locked up by his family, that he came out at night to commit crimes. The children were both fascinated and scared by him, and Dill only added to their curiosity with his stories and tall tales. As the days went on, the children devised a plan to try and catch a glimpse of Boo Radley. They snuck around his yard at night, peeking in windows and trying to open doors, but they never saw anything and were always stopped by Atticus, their father, who reminded them to respect their neighbors' privacy. Still, the mystery of Boo Radley only grew, and Scout and Jem knew that their summer was only just beginning. Despite their father's warning, Scout, Jem, and Dill continued to be fascinated with Boo Radley and tried to come up with new ways to lure him out of his house. They left notes, toes, and even a trail of candy leading up to his front porch. Their attempts were met with silence, and the children started to become frustrated. Dill suggested that they try to communicate with Boo Radley by leaving a note in the knothole of a nearby oak tree. They wrote a message, folded it carefully, and left it in the knothole. The next day, they found that the note had been taken and replaced with a small gift, a couple of gum wrappers, a shiny button, and a tarnished spelling medal. The children were elated. They felt that they were finally making progress in their mission to befriend Boo Radley. But Atticus caught wind of their antics and sat them down for a talk. He reminded them that Boo Radley was a human being with feelings and a right to privacy. He also warned them that their actions could be seen as trespassing and could lead to trouble with the law. The children were chastened and promised to leave Boo Radley alone. They even started to see the world around them in a new light, realizing that their actions could have consequences beyond their own desires. Still, they couldn't help but wonder about Boo Radley and what secrets lay hidden in his house. The summer stretched on, and the heat became oppressive. But the mystery of Boo Radley remained, and the children couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than met the eye. As the trial of Tom Robinson approaches, tensions in Macomb grow. Scout and Jem struggle to understand why their father would defend a black man accused of such a terrible crime. They face ridicule and threats from their peers for their father's defense of Tom. One day, Scout and Jem overhear their aunt Alexandra, who has come to live with them, discussing the trial with Atticus. She tells him that it's a mistake to defend Tom, and that he's bringing shame on their family. Atticus calmly reminds her of their duty to uphold justice, regardless of the consequences. As the summer progresses, Scout and Jem begin to see the deep-seated racism and social inequality in their town. They witness how the white people treat the black people differently, and how they are excluded from many aspects of society. Despite Atticus's warnings to leave Boo Radley alone, Scott and Jem continue to try to lure him out of his house by leaving notes and toys for him. However, their attempts are unsuccessful, and they begin to lose interest in their game. As the trial date approaches, the tension in Maycomb continues to build, and Scott and Jem start to realize the gravity of the situation. They begin to understand that their father is fighting for something much bigger than just the innocence of one man. He is fighting for justice and equality for all. The day of Tom Robinson's trial arrives, and Scott and Jem accompany their father to the courthouse. The courtroom is filled to capacity, and the children struggle to understand the complex legal proceedings. Atticus presents a strong defense, proving that the evidence against Tom is weak and that there is no physical way he could have committed the crime. However, the jury, made up entirely of white men, finds Tom guilty. Scott and Jem are devastated by the verdict, and their faith in the justice system is shattered. They struggle to come to terms with the fact that Tom, who's clearly innocent, has been convicted solely because of the color of his skin. As they leave the courthouse, they overhear a group of men making racist remarks about Tom and Atticus. Jem becomes angry and confronts them, but Atticus diffuses the situation and takes the children home. The verdict weighs heavily on Scott and Jem, and they begin to see the deep-rooted racism and social inequality in their community. They struggle to reconcile their feelings about their neighbors and classmates who hold prejudiced beliefs. Atticus reminds them that not everyone in Maycomb is racist, and encourages them to continue to do what is right, even in the face of opposition. Scott and Jem take this to heart and try to maintain their moral compass in a town that seems to have lost its way. Scott and Jem shudder as they recall the events of the previous night. Bob Ewell had attacked them on their way home from a Halloween party at their school, seeking revenge for Atticus's defense of Tom Robinson. But just as they were about to be seriously harmed, a mysterious figure intervened and fought off Ewell. It was only after the scuffle had ended that Scott realized who their savior was, Boo Radley, the very person they had been so fascinated with all summer. They take him back to their house, and as they sit together in the living room, Scott sees Boo in a new light. He is no longer the scary and reclusive figure they had imagined, but a kind and gentle person who had been watching over them all along. Over the following days, Scott and Jem reflect on their experiences and come to realize the gravity of what they have witnessed. They realize that the town's prejudice and social inequality have led to Tom's death and Bob Ewell's attack on them. As they begin to understand the complexities of the world around them, their innocence slowly slips away. The verdict in Tom Robinson's trial has left a heavy cloud over the town of Maycomb. People are angry, frustrated, and bitter. Scott and Jem struggle to understand why the color of one's skin can cause so much hatred. and division. Atticus reminds them that the fight for justice is a long and hard one, but it's a fight that they must continue. Scout witnesses the ugly side of her community when she and Jem are verbally attacked by some of their schoolmates. They are called terrible names and accused of being nigger lovers. Scout feels helpless and frustrated by the prejudice that surrounds her. Atticus reminds her that not everyone in the town is like that, and that there are still good people fighting for what's right. As the children continue to grapple with the aftermath of the trial, they learn of a new threat in the form of Bob Ewell, who is seeking revenge for his daughter's embarrassment on the witness stand. Atticus warns them to be careful, but they can't help but feel scared. The Halloween pageant at school is supposed to be a fun event, but it turns into a nightmare, and Scout and Jem are attacked on their way home. They are saved by an unknown figure who carries Jem back to safety. It's not until later that they realize that it was Boo Radley who came to their rescue. As Scout reflects on the events of the past few months, she realizes that her views on the world have changed. She now understands that there are many shades of gray, and that things aren't always as they seem. She feels grateful for the lessons she's learned, but also sad that they had to come at such a high cost. She now sees Boo Radley as a person, not just a figure of mystery, and realizes that he has been watching over them all along. She knows that she has a lot more to learn, but she's ready for whatever challenges lie ahead.